Scrubby people, Tracy Reed here today, and we are going to be making a 9 by 12 layout with the Cocoa Daisy Take Flight collection. I'm going to be making a somewhat boyish layout with this collection, even though it's all springy and rainbows, because it has a pretty deep color palette, and I thought it would go perfectly with this photo of, from 2020 of my kid in front of a rainbow graffiti mural kind of a thing. So I decided to go all in on the rainbows and use a 2-inch, 1.5-inch, and 1-inch circle punch to create some circles that I'm going to layer together and create my own rainbows. So I didn't quite have a direction when I started this, other than I was just punching these circles so that I could create these rainbows. So I made more than I needed for sure, but it gave me a nice variety at the end to really pick and choose which ones would match my layout perfectly. So I'm cutting two of each size circle out of each of these papers because there is a front and a back to the papers. So for two circles, I get two patterns, obviously. So then I'm going to take and make sure that all of the patterns are evenly distributed among these circles so that there's not duplicate patterns on the same circle stacks. And once I have that done, I'm just going to stick them down. I initially started using my tape runner, but it was super annoying. So eventually I switch to liquid glue so that it goes a little bit faster. See, you can see how annoying that was. Plus, I kept putting it on the wrong side, like the goofball that I am. So now I'm using liquid glue. I'm just gonna let these dry a little bit. And then I'm going to cut each of these circle stacks in half, and that will give me a bunch, I don't know how many I could count, but I'm not going to, a bunch of half circle rainbows. So you can see that even though they are rainbows, obviously, they are super masculine colored, which I normally don't care too much about the masculinity or the femininity of colors when scrapbooking. However, all of the gray in the mural of this photo really lends itself well to all of the gray in the colors of these papers. So I was really excited about how, even though we have pinks and yellows and greens and blues in the photo, and most of those colors in the papers too, I was really excited how the gray really brought everything together. Speaking of gray, I have trimmed down this traveler's notebook size paper to just the saying on it, and I'm going to create a paper blocked style layout as the base for this composition. So what I'm going to be doing in this layout is I'm going to show you how to start with a really solid composition. This is really straight lined. I'm going to trim down this journaling card so that it fits in this composition perfectly, but it's really straight lined. And what I want to do after I have created all of these solid lines is mess it up, right? Make it so that it is not perfectly blocky and instead has a little bit of life and movement. So once I get these paper strips down, I'm going to do that first with the half circle rainbows. So you'll see how I start breaking down the straight lines with those after I very slowly get all these papers down. Wanted to make sure that all of the lines were perfectly straight and everything was spaced correctly as well. I'm obviously just eyeballing it. After years and years and years of designing, I know how to eyeball things pretty well. It's not going to be perfect probably, but it's going to be pretty close. So I just eyeballed it so that it was evenly distant between top and bottom edges, side edges, as well as evenly distant between each of the paper blocks. Now I'm taking these half circle rainbows and I am adding them to the top and the bottom, trying to make sure that I am evenly distributing all of the patterns and none of the really bold patterns like the ones with the words or the color blocked ones are too next to each other. That red stripe is really bold too, so I'm trying not to put two red stripe ones next to each other. And I really want to make sure that the gray is balanced out too. I try not to put one of the large half circles, the largest ones, underneath that gray paper block, because I didn't want it to be the gray to be an extension of that gray paper block like it would be if I had put that one under there. There we go. So now that I've got those down, I'm going to work on the top two, and then I'm going to transition away from paper to finish the rest of this layout. So you can see, even with the half circles, we still have a really strong set of lines in this page, which makes a really great composition foundation. However, since I'm not a super blocky scrapbooker, it's reading a little bit boring to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bust out all of these rub-ons, and I'm going to start using the movement and color in the rub-ons to change up the composition. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these kites, and I'm going to put them in the top and the bottom corners of this page. And in order to do that, I have to change the composition of the rub-on a little bit as well. So I'm cutting apart the composition of the kites, and I'm starting with these in the corner, and then I will add on a few individual kites as well so that they wrap around that top half circle and really sort of kind of add corner brackets to this layout. So you can see they are already starting to change the vibe of the layout. I'm going to make sure that I use every single one of these kites, so I cut off that pink one. And then I'm also making sure to stick to the rainbow lines of the kites too. So the red and the pink go above the yellow and the green. And then I'm going to put a few more things in here as well. But I just wanted to make sure that everything was nice and rainbow color block, since we are emphasizing the rainbows. Now I'm going to grab these words, and I'm just going to say it's a wonderful day rather than it's a wonderful day to fly a kite. We weren't flying kites. I'm a pretty literal person. So it's a wonderful day worked perfectly. I love the staggeredness of the words. It adds some whimsy to this page, which is what I'm going for, what it needs. Adding two of these, well, it's one of these clouds, but I'm adding it in two places. And you can see how I am creating symmetry by doing the same thing on both sides of the page. However, because it looks different on both sides of the page, like I'm not doing exactly the same thing, it creates that balance and that symmetry, but it's still interesting and looks different than if I was doing like exact same stamping on both sides or something like that. Accidentally got rub-on my desk. I'm gonna have to scratch it off later. And then I'm gonna add one more of these hot air balloons, but this one's going to go over the photo because I really like the rainbow effect, and I wanted to make sure that you could see all of the rainbow colors. So it's just going to go over the photo a little bit. And so I have matching hot air balloons, and that takes up a lot of the excess space in the page as well, and just makes it go edge to edge, and you don't have that center composition anymore. That's just kind of, I don't know, it felt sort of austere to me. Sort of just I don't know. For me, the clean lines are always a little bit boring. I have to add some whimsy. Last thing I'm going to do is add in some puffy stickers. I love these little flowers. I have 3 yellow ones and 2 pink ones. Initially, I was going to, stagger them and make them, pink, yellow, or yellow, pink, yellow. But then I decided that instead I'm going to do 3 yellows over the circles, and then I'm going to add the pink ones on the sides and incorporate them into the rub-on composition. And lastly, I'm going to add in an actual rainbow, which looks a lot like the ones that I created, so it's perfect. And that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Tracy M. Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well. Tell me in the description box below, are you a blocky scrapbooker